X-Men. Get it!
Hey everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Battle of the Atom. This is the podcast where we take 3 X-Men stories and we examine them, we talk about them, and we put them on our big old list from best to worst of all the X-Men stories. And you know what? I couldn't do this without my co-host Adam Reck, because I'm Zach Jenkins and he's Adam Reck. And Adam, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm staring at my Blue Yeti microphone recording here and really hoping it doesn't become sentient and try and kill me. I'm really glad that it's an inanimate object that doesn't wish me harm. It's a good feeling.
Yes, because as we all know, our robot overlords are going to come and take the planet from us, and that's fine. We have accepted this inevitability. I've seen several movies about it. It's just going to happen. There's no use getting upset about it. Enjoy technology as long as you can.
Yeah, as long as it lets us, right?
Now, we say all that to say that we got some robot stories in today's episode of Battle of the Atom. Now, this episode comes to us from Patreon supporter John B. And John went on over to patreon.com, put in as little as $2 a month for his pledge, and got an entire episode crafted around his choice. So first off, thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
And second off, he chose a story celebrating the 35th anniversary of the X-Men, which is not a round number that you normally hear getting celebrated, but is a perfectly fine number. Mm-hmm. This is an oversized 2-part story covering Uncanny X-Men 360 and Adjectiveless X-Men 80 called Children of the Atom. Hey, wait, that's your name.
Yeah, sort of. I have been thinking about changing the spelling of it, but it doesn't seem to work so well.
Is this just what you call your kids? You're like, you are the children of the atom.
No, I would not do that. That would be pretty funny though. Maybe I should start. I drop her off for school and say, "Have a good day, children of the atom," and maybe I won't get a hug that morning. This is an odd story. Really strange 2-parter, especially as an anniversary celebration of some kind. Like, what's going on here?
Well, what's going on here is that Professor Xavier is just forming the X-Men as some scientists are shooting a rocket from Cape Citadel on the undescribed anniversary of the first appearance of mutants and Magneto taking over Cape Citadel in X-Men #1.
Yeah, and it's funny, like, that you distilled it down to those 2 things, because this story rides on 2 big X-Men tropes that I feel like we've now seen a couple of times. Mm-hmm. The idea that revisiting the Cape Citadel X-Men 1 storyline is important and that we need to revisit it and celebrate its anniversary in various ways, and or a giant size X-Men-esque building of a new X team, which we have seen in other storylines before. I feel like this becomes much more palatable because the artwork on the Uncanny issue is Chris Bachalo and Townsend. So it doesn't feel, as anchorless.
No.
But it sure could in other hands.
Yeah, and frankly, Brandon Peterson's art on X-Men 80 is really good. Like, it's some of my favorite stuff that guy's done.
Yeah, his artwork has evolved a great deal since like Executioner's Song era Brandon Peterson. I mean, he's still doing some gratuitous TNA stuff in places that's really weird, like on Marrow. But that being said, I agree. Like, his artwork's not taking me out of this story either.
Yeah.
But it's a strange story.
Yes.
Because we're led to believe that Professor X is forming this team, but it's not actually Professor X.
It's Cerebro. And Steve Siegel and Joe Kelly saved that twist for the very end. It's...
Yeah, last page, last panel.
it's interesting. So to back up a little bit to where the X-Men were at, because this is a time of great turbulence for the X-Men. Operation Zero Tolerance happened about a year ago, which completely wiped out the team. It reset them to zero, and they had some weird teammates. They had Cecilia Reyes, Marrow, and my boy Maggot were all on the team, as well as Cannonball, who had been on the team for a while, and Joseph. And at this point, they kind of hit a reset button on most all of that, because they bring the team all the way back down to the core essentials. The only people who were left from adjectiveless X-Men on that team were Marrow, Wolverine, and Storm. And Rogue is the only character who was from the Uncanny team who sticks around for this. And to fill in the space, they bring in 3 characters from the now defunct Excalibur, being Kitty Pryde, Nightcrawler, and Colossus.
Yeah, it's a great lineup. You know, I really like that they're all together in on this story. It lends a certain likability to it that if it was a different lineup, I don't know the story would have.
Yeah, I like the lineup. I have some issues just from a meta sense, because Joe Kelly and Steve Siegel, they had spent, I think, 10 issues on the books with this new direction, and they were doing something with it. There was a lot of interesting thing, a lot of potential, but Bob Harrison, the editorial office, really said, no, we don't want to do this new thing. We want a fresh start. We want to focus on our legacy. We really want to bring it back to what Marvel needs now, and reset the book. Well, both books. And I have some issues with that in general, just because I liked that Maggot era, as I like to call it.
Right. Well, it's that same editorial edict that, like, we're not going to allow the X-Men to have their Siege Perilous time again. You know what I mean? We're not going to allow them to disband so that we have to do the reset. It's like we need the main characters there at all times, which, you know, I don't know that I always buy into. Like, I agree. I like when the team gets a chance to be a new thing and you know, explore some different avenues and different lineups.
But yeah, speaking of different lineups, Cerebro's team of X-Men has a interesting lineup. I don't know if it's good.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would call them interesting. Like, you know what it reminded me of a little bit was, like, they're all kind of amalgams of different X characters.
They really are.
So every time you see one, you're like, wait, is that Mystique? Is that Colossus? But they're kind of like a bunch of people, different characters mashed together. Do you want to go through the roster?
First guy we have from alphabetical order, thanks to the Marvel Wikia, is Chaos or Xeos, depending on which issue, because they just changed the CH to an X the second time he appears, which I kind of love.
Okay.
He is a comic book version of Autistic Mutant who can shoot energy blasts, but not really control them. Kind of like our good boy Cyclops. But he also dresses like Havoc.
Yeah, and wears 3D glasses. Did I catch that? Was words for no reason with ellipses around it. And, you know, it just, I wish they hadn't thrown that in because it's disrespectful to people who have autism.
We also have, what's her name? Christo Lemieux, who is Crux, who has both fire and ice powers. She's boring. She's French. We got Addison Falk, who is the Gray King, who definitely has not Phoenix, but Phoenix powers.
Yeah, it got kind of like a Phoenix fire going around him at all times.
Yeah. We got Lee Bruder, who is Landslide, who is like Blob Sabretooth.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the Beast a little bit. He's got kind of like
maybe
the
a little bit
big hands, big feet kind of thing going on.
Right. We've got Mercury, but not that Mercury, who is Colossus with claws.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Sister Joy, who is named Rapture, and she is Archangel, but with a sword.
Yeah. It's basically Mystique, right? With like wings and a sword and is a nun.
It's basically not Mystique But yes.
Right.
She had wings. She's had wings before, and it's very dumb when it happens.
So, yeah, we go through quite a long introduction in this first issue of all of them, and then they attack a cruise ship, uh, which is very un-X-Men-y, but they claim to be the X-Men, and naturally the real X-Men are very confused by this.
Right. And that's kind of what there is in this story. Like, they get confused, and they're trying to figure out who these new X-Men are. At the same time, they're trying to stop this missile launch at Cape Citadel that Super Doctor astronaut Peter Corbeau is warning them about. And it's like, guys, this is super bad. I didn't realize that. I thought it was just spaceships, and I really like those. Didn't realize they were going to try and exterminate all mutants using the spaceship. So that's on me. But please fix this.
Yeah, I love that Peter Corbeau is involved in this story. The actual concept of the Benassi rocket and what Cerebro wants to do with it, I think is an interesting concept. If Cerebro was going to gain sentience, and become a villain, it makes sense that it would involve finding all of mutant kind in some effort to exterminate all of mutant kind. So I think it works pretty well, even though it's kind of a MacGuffin in the story.
I mean, it is. It's there to make callbacks to X-Men 1 and to give the X-Men something to do. And I'll say Cerebro's motivations become a lot more clear in the actual Hunt for Xavier stuff, where it is a machine that is frustrated at trying to catalog all the X-Men. And it's very resonant with someone who's been doing that for 3 years.
Are you saying you kind of identify with Cerebro here in this case?
So by the time this has come out, Infinity War has been out for 3-4 weeks now. So
that everyone's seen it.
So if you're listening to an X-Men podcast, you've seen it or you're okay with it. But you know how like people are saying that Thanos is sympathetic even though genocide is on the table for him? That's how I feel about Cerebro. That's how I feel about Cerebro in the very specific way of, man, cataloging X-Men can suck sometimes.
I'm so glad you went that direction and not like, I think vulture.com did a piece about like staff members thinking that Thanos was hot.
I mean, look, that's different. Wait, that's a different thing. You can think someone's hot and also think they're a bad person.
That's true. No, you make a very good point.
Yeah,
I'm just,
two different
making sure you're not attracted to Cerebro, but we will get into some robot love later in this.
We're gonna get into some robot love later. But yeah, that's kind of the story. It's good to see the Excalibur guys get back with the rest of the X-Men. I think that's fun because like Kitty and Nightcrawler had been out of X-Men since 1989.
Yeah.
This is the first time they've been back.
Yeah.
Colossus a little bit sooner, but
no, it works really well. I like that they kind of all team up, and I agree that it may not be the best for the line at that point, given what had been going on in the past year, but it makes for a pretty solid story.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll say the one thing that I think is kind of a downside of this is at the end, Cerebro just absorbs all of its X-Men, and then they're never seen again.
Well, and that's okay, because they're not that interesting. But in terms of storytelling, we did spend, a good chunk of the first issue introducing all of them as these very individual characters. So, that's a whole different story that just gets thrown away there.
It feels like if you're going to spend what is the equivalent of an entire issue introducing these guys, maybe keep them around for this entire Hunt for Xavier chunk of the book instead of for an issue and a half after they become the quote-unquote X-Men.
Yeah, even if they were just cannon fodder. But, we saw that with Eve of Destruction too, right? Like a long introduction of reforming an X-Men team, and they don't really do anything and we never see them again for the rest of continuity. So, it's a trope.
It is not a particularly good one, though I think this is done better than Eve of Destruction.
Yes,
I'll say that.
Absolutely.
Do you think on our list of 102 X-Men stories from Days of Future Past to the Draco that this is better than, say, actually, another story that does a lot to build up a new team of X-Men only to kind of get rid of them quickly? Deadly Genesis, which is at 84 right now.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I was kind of looking in that part of the list, because I don't really have any problems with this story. I actually like it, and I think having Bachalo on art does a lot. The reformation of the team does a lot to make this more enjoyable. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think I liked it better than Deadly Genesis. I think I liked it better than Extreme X-Men Expose. How high would you be
Is
willing to
it better?
go?
I'll ask you this, since it uh, calls back to that story a lot. Is it better than X-Men #1 at number 79 on our list?
Ooh, no, I don't know if it goes that far.
I don't either. I
Yeah.
don't think this is better than Into the Void.
Is it better than
Um,
Quanin, which we talked about in our last episode?
I liked rereading Quanin more.
Okay.
I did.
Is it better than that
Yeah,
Storm solo story though?
that's where I'm kind of looking.
Okay.
Uh, I think it's probably a little worse
Okay.
because I think that Storm story you can hand to someone and say, hey, here's this Storm story.
Mhm.
It'll be okay. You'll like it. This I'm not sure I would hand to anyone unless they've been reading X-Men for a while and they're looking for something to say, oh, here's something neat you might not have checked out.
Yeah, this to a first time reader is going to be fairly confusing, especially if you had not been reading what had come before it and why what's going on is going on. It does help to read what comes before and after. So,
Absolutely.
So a new 83.
This is it. Yeah, it'll be the new number 83 on our list. Uncanny X-Men 360, an adjectiveless X-Men 80, Children of the Atom.
Nice.
Now we're going to move on to another story about robots,
Mm-hmm.
and a story that is better known for telling roughly the same story.
And it's fascinating reading the Children of the Atom story and seeing a different writer come up with a similar conceit. And yet what we're going to talk about right now does it, I think, way better. And it's a far more interesting play on that conceit than the other story is.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Astonishing X-Men Dangerous. That's Astonishing X-Men 7 through 12, written by Joss Whedon with art by John Cassaday and Laura Martin. This is the one where the Danger Room becomes sentient and attacks the X-Men and is mad at Charles Xavier. Let me ask you this, first and foremost.
Yes.
You think Joss Whedon had any idea about this Cerebro story from the late 90s?
I'm going to guess.
I want to say no.
I'm going to guess no. And I'm going to guess that even if he did, I don't think it really matters because in the context of Siegel's story, Cerebro is infected based on something that happened with Bastion before that storyline came up, right? So the premise is quite different here, right? Because the idea of the Danger Room becoming sentient is something that is another retcon here that Professor Xavier has known about. It's revealed for quite a bit of time, correct?
Yeah, sometime in our continuity, the early to mid 90s, whenever they reconstructed the Danger Room with Shi'ar technology, which would have been probably around 1992.
Yeah. And we've talked about Astonishing before on the show. This is outstanding.
It's
stuff.
good.
It is absolutely beautiful. Cassaday's artwork is, again, extremely cinematic. There's a couple things in here where you could really imagine this jumping onto the screen very easily. But just to come back to the idea of Danger for a second, I think that the idea behind Danger is a pretty brilliant one. The idea that not only was the Danger Room sentient, but is really striking out because all it experiences is a form of abuse from Xavier and the X-Men and wants suitably to get some sort of vengeance. I think it's kind of brilliant in its own terms.
Yeah, it's interesting. Now, I will say that this, I keep going around on Whedon's run, which is, as a whole, every story in that run is better than most stories in any other X-Men run.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this may be my least favorite of his run.
Okay.
It's close because I know I like the Torn story better, which is the third arc, And then the Break World arc at the end, I think I definitely like more. But this has some really good moments. This has that time that Cyclops wants this thing off his lawn and destroys a Sentinel just by flipping up his visor.
Oh,
and it's very good.
That's such a cool scene.
The panel layout by John Cassaday is incredibly choice on that because he just draws it in red.
Mm-hmm.
He covers 2/3 of the page in red, and all you see is like the charred remains of everything out there. And you get Wolverine saying the line that I think sums up their relationship the best. And he says, "Every now and again, Summers, I remember why you're in charge." And it's pretty good.
I love that Wolverine is kind of in awe of both Cyclops and Colossus in this arc. There's a lot of really good character interactions here that really sell the story, which is great.
Yeah. And one thing that I think works well at the beginning, at least, is the opening fight is the X-Men versus a giant mole man monster.
Yeah, with Fantastic
Four. Fantastic Four. They just show up, and Ben Grimm, the Thing, is so mad. He's like, "This is our story. They're fighting a monster in Manhattan. This is our gig. What are they doing?" And Cyclops straight up shows his savvy. He's like, "Yeah, you guys do the superhero thing. We're really trying to do the superhero thing right now and make people think of us as superheroes. We're going through a bit of a rebranding exercise. So can you let us have this one?"
Well, and I like that they do, like Reed and Sue are kind of like, okay, hey, we're in support of mutant rights. We'll let you have this one. It's good PR for all of us. If we help support you and you get credit for taking this mole man monster down.
Yeah, it's a good moment. I'll tell you what ends up not working as well for me is the additional, Charles Xavier is a real super jerk moment.
Okay.
Because we get a lot of these in quick succession in, this time period. We get this and Deadly Genesis like within a year of each other.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Professor X sucks.
Yeah, he betrays us again and again and again.
And I'll say the justification for everyone being mad at Professor X is, I don't think that lands as well. Because you get Professor X, this character who constantly has voices in his head, hearing a voice, quote unquote, from the danger room, thinking that it might be sentient, and then not reacting, and his inaction causes everyone to turn away from him. And I understand what Joss Whedon is trying to say with this, and I understand what he's trying to do with it, but I don't think it lands, and I don't think it is as effective because it's such an easy thing to wave off and say, well, what if he didn't get any of that? I don't know. That part doesn't work as well for me.
Well, and especially in comparison of the crime of saying that he formed an entire team of X-Men, let them die, and then erased Cyclops' memory so you could forget it. That seems like a much more personal and, murderous angle than this particular scenario where, the danger room might be sentient, he thinks. It doesn't work as well as in comparison.
To me, it's such a, I don't want to say gray area, but it's such an interesting slight that it's so much harder to understand why all of the X-Men would immediately be disgusted by him. That's a very different thing than, I killed a lot of children on accident.
Right. That one makes immediate sense. So I get it. I will say what does work here is Professor X's fight scene with Danger. When
he hits Danger with the truck?
Oh, I was just going to say that is such a really masterful scene, the way that that's played, and it's almost like a jump scare because you do not expect Professor X to be jumping, to be driving this truck through that wall. It works really well. And I love that he's like, oh, you expected me to just play psychic mind games with you. No, I'm going to hit you with a Mack truck.
Yeah, it's It's good. We're not talking about John Cassaday's art enough on this, but he's like 70% of why this story works. He's an incredibly clean artist, and he has a very good sense of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honestly, he makes everything look really good and tells a very clear and concise story. He does an excellent job of that.
What do you think about Danger's actual design? Because when Danger reveals itself, it is, a somewhat, it's meant to be a female form with kind of like, I don't know how to describe it, like wire dreads almost. And do you like
and
Danger
eyelashes, but only on the bottom side of her eyes?
Yeah, it's a very interesting character design.
I don't love the design of Danger, and frankly, as a character, Danger's never been one of my faves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't dislike Danger. You can go and see where Danger is on my ranked list of X-Men. I think she is in the, 3/4-ish quartile
Okay.
of everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Wait, 3/4-ish quartile. That works out. It's in like the third chunk. She's in the bottom half.
Yeah.
Of X-Men characters. I don't love Danger all that much. I think as a character, Danger struggles because Danger is so murderous and convinces a child to commit suicide in this arc.
Yep.
And then is supposed to be one of the good guys later, and that's a hard line to move to. How about yourself? What do you think of Danger?
I think Danger is a cooler concept than she is a recurring character.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why she could work both as a hero and as a villain, but I think it works a lot better as a plot device than it does as an ongoing character. Though we will see in a few moments that you can use Danger in different ways that are still very, very interesting.
Yes.
So I think this story is still really solid. It certainly doesn't have it's certainly not going to go as high as the initial run of Gifted. Which is can I
jump one thing in here before we hit rankings?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, man. The one other thing I'd like to say about this run before we jump into the ranking section of this part is that Joss Whedon does a very good job seeding future plot lines in these 6 issues. You didn't get as much of it in Gifted because that was, the setup of the whole thing. But you get a ton of stuff about Breakworld and about the Hellfire Club Emma Frost arc in this. You get every issue. There's some, plot thread that they're going to come back to and they're going to bring up again. I think it's very good. He continues to develop Hisako armor as a character in this run, which she has a very slow buildup to the point that by the end of the run, she is a, core member of the team, and you could see her being one of the X-Men. If Astonishing X-Men wasn't constantly delayed and she, all those characters were more or less off the table for so long, I bet you would have seen Hisako become, one of the X-Men moving forward.
Mm-hmm. It's a great character.
Yeah, I like her a lot. They do a lot with her. They do a lot with Sword, and they do a lot with Emma and her inner struggles. And when we get to Torn at some point, which I cannot believe that we won't, we'll talk about that.
Sure.
But yeah. I think you were you're thinking the same lines as I am. This isn't as good as Gifted, but this is still better than most X-Men stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, just visually alone, it's absolutely beautiful. It's extremely high concept. So I think it works on a variety of different levels. How high would you go?
So I'm going to throw this out there. I don't think it's as good as Avenge the Earth from Uncanny Avengers 18 through 22. I think they both are trying to do, capital M, capital C, Marvel Comics superhero stories, but Avenge the Earth is more successful.
Do you think it's better than Magic miniseries?
I think it's better than What If Wolverine Was Lord of the Vampires, which is right below
Absolutely.
Magic.
Absolutely. I think this this, I know that magic is very important to continuity and that we like that sort of epic saga that takes place there, but I might be willing to put this above that. Just based on the art alone, Cassaday is absolutely masterful in the way that he tells this story. What do you think?
I think that's fair. I think that this can be our new number 23, Astonishing X-Men. Dangerous.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, as everyone gets dangerous, we have one last story to go over. This is definitely a story about robots. All right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This is
a weird one.
This is a good one. This is a story I constantly come back to because it fills me with such joy. It is X Club. It's a 5-issue miniseries written by Cy Spurrier with art by Paul Davidson and colors by Rochelle Rosenberg. Adam, what you think about X Club?
Oh man, this is such a weird lineup. But if you are a Dr. Nemesis fan, you can absolutely not skip this because the delights therein of just what goes on with his character over these 5 issues is so funny.
Oh, this is
I don't know
scripture.
if you want to.
This is scripture
Yeah.
for Dr. Nemesis. It really
Absolutely.
is.
I mean, just even without the psychic starfish lodged on his head, he is just. I like Dr. Nemesis in general. I really liked him on Hopeless's Cable and X-Force run. But here, this is like the most Dr. Nemesis-y thing you'll ever read, and it's great.
Yeah, so I got to provide some context for this event comic thing because it needs it. This is right after Schism. This is part of Regenesis. The X-Line was split up between Cyclops and Wolverine, and everyone got stories, and then there were a couple of miniseries that came out of this. So there was Wolverine in the X-Men miniseries, Magneto miniseries, and then X Club. I think those were the only miniseries. There may be another one. There are at least those 3. And X Club was a team that came together during Matt Fraction's run, composed of the science-y people of X-Men. So at this point, the team is Danger, the Danger Room, who's now good. Kavita Rao, who was the scientist from Gifted, who found the mutant cure. Box, who's from Alpha Flight, who is Madison Jeffries, and he can forge things. He can be Forge.
Pretty much.
He's Canadian Forge, which makes him worse? Question mark.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of he doesn't have a lot of actual like character behind him, but he's very vital to the story.
He is, and then you also have Dr. Nemesis, who is so good. You know, Dr. Nemesis is a Golden Age comics character that fell into public domain, and then I think Roy Thomas in the 90s picked him up for a 2-issue thing of the Invaders, and then Matt Fraction saw this and said, "Yes, Father, you shall become an X-Men character."
I did not know that. That's fascinating.
Yes.
I mean, I knew that he had origins in older comics, but I didn't realize that that's how he got into Fraction's run. That's fascinating.
His Golden Age stories are all public domain. They are all available online. I don't remember where, but there's some site that has a bunch of Golden Age stuff. They aren't particularly great, but I love them in retrospect saying, okay, so this is definitely Dr. Nemesis from X-Men. This is in his history, and we have to accept this as true.
That this is canon.
No, this is canon for Dr. Nemesis.
And it's great that his history goes back that far because this story involves the Submariner. It also involves Nazis and punching a lot of Nazis with science. So
yeah, if you want some Nazi punching, this is a comic for you.
Yeah. It's there. It's happening quite a bit, right till the last issue. But this is a weird one. Like, we haven't really even scraped the surface of what the plot is, because the cast is crazy enough, but the plot is even crazier. It involves what kind of like an elevator to space. It involves danger, getting pregnant. Wow, there's
It involves the Terrigen being dicks to Atlanteans.
yeah, uh, turning kind of mutating them into these monsters. So uh, I think we said off the air that this is like the spurrierest of the Spurrier stories. This is about as Spurrier as you can get.
Yeah, and I love that fact about it because I like Cy Spurrier a lot. I can understand that he is not a comics creator for everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I can see why people would maybe look at this and go, what? This is not for me. But I think if you like Cy Spurrier stuff, if you've read some of his other work, like his X-Force run, you got to check this out. It is really cool and bizarre.
Yeah, it's kind of great. Essentially, X Club is trying to launch the space elevator. It kind of works, but then their whole thing gets disrupted and everyone tries to figure out what was disrupting it. Dr. Nemesis figures out that it was Nazis and does what Dr. Nemesis does and proceeds to punch those Nazis right in their stupid face.
Yeah. And at the same time, like you mentioned, the Terrigen Mists have created these sort of nightmarish Atlantean creatures that are giving superpowers to regular old, sea folk. So Dr. Nemesis gets this starfish attached to his head that projects all of his thoughts out loud, including his crush on Kavita Rao.
Which is great.
Which is absolutely wonderful. So you get Dr. Nemesis's normal super fast dialogue, but it's punctuated in times with this inner monologue, which is being spoken out loud by a starfish. So if you think that kind of high concept idea is right down your alley, this is for you for sure.
It's just the comic's not particularly weighty. It's not particularly important. It is delightful. Like this is something I own the trade of. I've probably read this thing 5 or 6 times in the last few years. It's really good. Like it's just this is fun comics. It gives a lot of its characters. It gives all of its characters an arc. It's 4 main characters. You have Danger being pregnant with this new consciousness of AI, which is a whole weird. That high concept part doesn't land as well. You have Kavita Rao trying to get people, mostly Dr. Nemesis, to respect her for being the only human on X Club. You have Dr. Nemesis punching Nazis and saying fun stuff and having a starfish on his head. And then you got Madison Jeffries trying to figure out that he's really turned on by robots.
And slowly
do we need to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, he does slowly just begin to say, you know what? I'm okay with this. I'm going to be midwife to the birth of this, whatever this AI that's coming out of Danger is. And we're going to make out at the end of this story. Like that is weird. And that's the kind of weird that really works in this story.
Oh yeah. Danger also ends up claiming the entire space elevator for all of robot kind.
Yeah.
And then says, we're going to protect it with the power of love and makes out with Madison Jeffries. Which sure is an ending, all right?
Well, you know, what I love is that the beginning and the end of this story are these like weird Cyclops press conferences that just keep getting interrupted by whatever wackiness is going on in the central story. And it's wonderful. I mean, I just flipped open, I have these in floppies, and I just flipped open issue 3, and like, here we have Dr. Nemesis in a spacesuit with the starfish lodged on his head, standing on the back of a mutated hammerhead shark, and in his caption bubble is "Science Ho!" I mean, there's nothing like this out there. It is so weird and so unique. It's great.
It is so good. Especially because then his inner monologue is him riding the shark singing, "Killed a wabbit, killed a wabbit." Yeah. It's very good.
Uh-huh.
Cy Spurrier hits all of the right buttons for me. I really, really like this story. It's going to be you love it or you will absolutely hate this. I I can't argue with anyone who says that they found no enjoyment out of this and that they hated it so much and they thought it was dumb. Like, I get it.
Yeah, I can see
really
that.
do. But for me, this is just so good.
Yeah, count me as a fan here. I like this a lot. And I just generally like Cy Spurrier's writing. But especially if you like, I mentioned this before, if you like Dr. Nemesis, you got to check this out. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. You know that at one point, Dr. Nemesis eschews all science and says, nanobots are passé, pal. Punching is forever.
There's good punching in this.
There's such good punching.
Yeah.
There's a part where Dr. Nemesis logics his way out of a problem like it's a friggin' Douglas Adams Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy thing.
Yeah.
I think he does that like twice. Or 3 times. Oh, it's good. I like this story a lot. You should read it. It's very fun.
All right. So the other Cy Spurrier we've talked about was X-Men Legacy 300, which is currently at number 21 on our list. Do you like that better than this, or do you like X Club better?
I like X Club better. X Club brings me a lot of joy. X Club, and I don't think X Club is as good as this, but it reminds me of like reading Nightcrawler by Cockrum. It has that same level of pure fun comics to it. Now, I think the Nightcrawler story is by and large better because I think there's some weak parts in X Club, specifically everyone who's not Dr. Nemesis. Like Kavita Rao gets a good storyline where she deals with empirical evidence versus faith and how to balance that as a human. But Danger doesn't do a lot except for be kind of an antagonist and a threat for a little bit unintentionally. And I don't necessarily buy into Madison Jeffries' story all that much.
Okay.
Like I get what they're trying to do with it, but I don't think that lands as well. So I don't think this is as good as Nightcrawler. I don't think it's as good as Life Death.
I'm actually looking down by Wolverine and the X-Men, the Dupe issue, which is another just kind of no holds bar, absolutely insane issue. Below that, we have the Inferno arc from New Mutants, which I gotta say, I think that might be my cap here. I think that X Club is really fun, but it is certainly by no means essential to X continuity. You could not read this and you'd be fine. But if you like a certain amount of like wacky off the wall stuff, you got to check it out. So what do you think?
Here's
about
what
that?
everyone should do. What everyone should do is read the first issue. Read those 20 pages. You'll know from there. If you don't like those 20 pages, just put it down, walk away. Don't waste your time. You're not gonna like it.
Yeah.
If you enjoyed that first issue, I don't have to tell you to keep reading because you've already hit next on Marvel Unlimited.
Yeah, you're already on to issue number 2.
So do that. But no, I think you're right. Inferno is probably better. It really is. But yeah, I think X Club can be the new number 21 on our list. And that my robot friends will do it for this episode of Battle of the Atom. Again, this came to us from Patreon supporter John B. Thank you, John, because he, just like all of our Patreon supporters, went over to patreon.com/XavierFiles, and they tossed in a little bit to get an episode around them, maybe to get some of our other rewards like crayon drawings or line stepping privileges on the XavierFiles.com website, where this episode and everything else that I do as part of the Xavier Files media empire is stored. I can tell you that on XavierFiles.com there are weekly-ish articles about different X-Men characters. I just wrote one about Storm, but I'm pretty sure we have like 2 or 3 episodes recorded in the bag at this point. So I'm not like 100% sure what I'm working on as you listen to this, but I bet it's good.
I bet it's awesome.
I mean, look, let's not go that far. And you can find me on twitter.com and exhibitfiles.com. Nope. There's not a .com in my Twitter.
Don't put a .com in his Twitter handle.
But Adam, what about you? Is there a .com in your Twitter handle?
Not as far as I know. You guys can always follow me at Arthur Stacy, and at least for the next couple of weeks, we've got new pages of Bish and Jubes coming out at adamrec.tumblr.com.
Awesome. That about does it for this episode. Next time, we have an all Jeff Parker Power Hour as we talk about his exiles and some other interesting stuff that happened. But until then, this has been Battle of the Atom. We hope you survive the survived. I can put the right tense on things, right? The experience. We hope you survived it. Get out of here. Bye.
Get it!